Tell us how Fortescue became one of the world's largest iron ore operators.
Tell you how, just like in a second.
Tell us
One of the biggest challenges was the belief of experts that they could do something they had never done.
So I joined when the company was only just on a year old. It was a bunch of geos. It was Andrew and a few other people.
Well, Fortescue, when they first started out, didn't have any iron ore at all. The naysayers in the Pilbara said you'd never find any iron ore. So the job description from Andrew was pretty simple. Find as much iron ore as you can, as close as you can to Port Hedland.
The Solomons, just going out into that country. I've always had a real passion for the red dirt of Australia. But I can remember being out there first thing in the morning as the sun's just coming up across that beautiful redness. And then when the geologists started to tell you about down there in that dirt underneath your feet, there's a hell of a lot of iron ore. It was very heartening.
All of the previous explorers had got it just backwards, which meant instead of the ore body being 1 kilometre long, it was about 20 kilometres long.
I was actually with the contract geologist that was asked to go out to Cloudbreak, and he said, "Sarah, this is it, call Eamon."
That exploration team created history. It was the most successful exploration play in global mining history for the amount of new ore that was discovered, not only in the time frame, but also the price of discovery.
You know, and then it was all on, Cloudbreak was all on.
It's very exciting. It's like, right, this is why we're here. And then it all takes off, well, with Andrew, certainly in Fortescue, it takes off very quickly. So from that first drill line in May 2004, we drilled out Christmas Creek, and the following year, Cloudbreak, I would get told another drill rig was turning up and I'd ask when, and it would drive past me. So we needed more staff, more caravans. We had people sleeping in tents, and then we ran out of tents. People were sleeping in swags.
Without doubt, this is one of Andrew Forrest's proudest moments.
It does feel fantastic.
In 3.5 years, his company Fortescue Metals Group built a mine, a railway and a port at a cost of $3 billion, battling detractors and even a cyclone along the way.
This isn't about an ore body. This is about a great country, and a country which gives us all such tremendous opportunities.
It was just an incredible feeling of, you know, we just might get this done, you know. We'd borrowed so much money, we'd raised so much equity, we'd taken on the giants, and at this stage we were in sight, really in sight of victory. We weren't there, but at least we could see it.
When I first joined Fortescue, Andrew asked me to procure in China when we had nothing in terms of iron ore. The biggest problem at the time was BHP and Rio. They built up a quite big customer base in China then. So the customers were told by BHP and Rio not to touch Fortescue.
There were times where the situation was critical, particularly the first effort to get some real money into the company. I think we needed about 3.2 billion or something like that. A gaggle of guys got on aeroplanes and flew all around the world trying to drum up money. And at the end of that process, they ended up 400 million short still. So that was pretty tense time. And they managed to negotiate an arrangement with Leucadia, and they came through with the last 400 million to get the business going. But so that was pretty risky.
And we were spending that money very quickly, but we didn't have the production for it yet. So the company was extremely vulnerable in those days to fluctuations in the market.
When we made appointments with purchasing officers, they were reluctant to see us. So sometimes they sent their junior people to meet with us. But we didn't mind. Anybody we could meet, you know, we tried to knock on doors and meet with anyone who was willing to meet with us. But particularly in those days, we were lucky. The private steel mills in China, they were more enthusiastic to meet with us because they were not being taken care of by BHP and Rio.
Finding the ore was one thing, getting that ore mine ready and the infrastructure required to get that mine ready ore to its customer kept us deeply focused.
When we built our rail network, we used the Chinese rail and the Chinese manufactured ore car. Our competitors openly said the rail network will never last, they will fail. But look at us now, we are the heaviest axle load heavy haul in the world.
That great photo of Andrew standing on the front of the locomotive with the flag, there's another story behind that that's saying, well, if you were sleeping on the railway line, here I come.
Two early comments really stick out for me. The first one came from BHP when we were just starting to explore the Chichesters, and that was, there is nothing out there except for a bucket of rusty nails.
Our deposits in the Chichester looked like someone had thrown a bucket of rusty bolts over the fence.
Well, there were constantly stories about Fortescue negativity, right?
That we were more of a real estate company than we were an iron ore company because we were just pegging tenements everywhere in the Pilbara and none of these tenements had iron ore on them.
But Chinese always believed us. They supported us. They supported us with prepayments. That's incredible, right? The prepayment was no interest attached.
The other one was one that Rio said to us when we had first come up with the concept of Solomon. The next day, Sam Walsh was quoted in the West Australian as saying, "There's nothing out there, we've drilled the bugger out of it." And that was the quote.
Twiggy forest, not out of the woods just yet.
Andrew, at the time he had a mixed reputation. We got to know one another and there was just so much of him that totally took any of that doubt out of my mind.
I just love the fact that right now we employ, directly, indirectly, well over 20,000 people. There's hundreds of thousands of people who the company's touched in a really positive way, given opportunities to even school kids or women and men who've said, Fortescue's shown we can do the impossible. Let's have a go ourselves.
Being a part of Iron Bridge, the agreement and the contract that's just gone out with the Nyamal people, it is definitely an honour to be a part of the FMG experience and story.
I'd say the hardest time was receiving a call which was almost in disbelief that we'd had this horrific cyclone. I went straight to the hospital and I remember this big hairy bloke with great tats and huge frame, and he was in hospital with a crushed leg. And I remember just holding his hand and crying. And he said, "Hey mate, look, I'm feeling okay, Andrew. I'm feeling okay. Don't be so upset." I said, "Look around this room. All of you are injured from Cyclone George." He said, "Yeah, mate, but how are you?" And I said, "Oh, mate, I'm feeling like giving up." And I remember he had this huge brace on his leg, and he sat bolt upright, this great big guy, and he said, "Well, if you give up, then none of this is worthwhile for us. So you can't give up. So we all have a reason for why we're in here and why we're going to get back out to work." And it was a real slap in the face I needed.
The way the company just rallied together, held each other, and that never give up attitude just pushed through and made things work. But not only that, the way we've honoured them people since, through the Northern Spirits.
The Fortescue culture and Fortescue family makes no difference whether you've been there 20 years or 20 minutes. You are instantly part of that family and that culture.
The people are the greatest assets here. As long as we look after our people, keep creating the culture that we built from day dot and keep maintaining it, keep pushing people, never give up.
Never give up. I think that's something that as a business we never do, individually as well, and as a collective, as a family.
I love Fortescue. I just love the culture, love the vitality of Fortescue to allow you, to empower you to do things that you never thought possible.
What's kept me at Fortescue is that ability to go to places that no one's ever been. Almost 20 years later, I'm still here.
One thing we're really good at is recognising potential and giving the opportunity for people to reach their dreams.
I can only see good things in front of Fortescue going forward.
My dream for the future of Fortescue, as of this evening, is that we have come so far and we have so much to celebrate. But what we're actually celebrating is really the birth of a little child. It's about 5 or 6 years old in childlike terms, and its full future is ahead of it. This child's potential to be the world's most important producer of metals, because those metals will be produced with no harm and no pollution. The world's most important producer of energy, because that energy is made with no harm and no pollution.
Gee, what a dream. But it's so important, not so much for me, but for my great-great-grandchildren.
I think the next generation coming up, they have a completely different attitude, as you would expect from the older people, and they want it to happen. And I think if you go down to the teens, they're just expecting it to happen. They're wondering why it's not happening already.
I've seen immense bravery at Fortescue, courage, conviction, leadership, perseverance, which I never thought I'd see in my entire life anyway. And to see it at Fortescue, and where people just went the extra mile, time and time again, I think is probably the most heartwarming, wonderful inspiration which I've ever had. And that's from my workmates.